Parents, what destroyed the relationship between you and your child? 7 years ago, I was a structural engineer with a beautiful wife and a teenage daughter who adored me. My name was on city projects. I was proud of the work I did. I had just bought us a house, and I thought that made up for all the nights I didn't make it home to them for dinner. I remember the city bridge was my biggest project. It had a clean design, smart support system. It was supposed to be safe for 100 years. I remember bringing Claire and Maddie to the opening ceremony. Maddie was 13 and bored, but Claire clapped like I had just won an Oscar. She was always like that, loud in the quietest ways. The night everything changed was one of those sudden spring storms, high winds, flood warnings. I was at the office reviewing the next big job. Maddie had an art competition. I promised I'd take her. She reminded me all week, but something came up, like it always did. I told Claire to go instead. She didn't want to drive in that weather, but she smiled and said, okay, like always. They were halfway across the bridge I designed when it gave out. A support beam failed. Part of the structure collapsed into the river. Claire passed instantly. Maddie survived with a crushed leg and a bruised spine. Police found Claire using her body to shield Maddie. She would have lived had she not done that. She sacrificed her life to save Maddie's. The call came around 9. The voice on the other end said Claire's name and the words, fatal accident. And then I couldn't hear anything else. Everything after was a blur of hospital lights and white coats and painkillers. I sat beside Maddie for 5 days before she opened her eyes. She looked at me once, then turned away. When she came home from the hospital, she was weak and numb. She couldn't climb the stairs, but she didn't want help. I'd try to talk, and she'd go quiet. I'd ask her how she felt, and she'd roll her wheelchair out of the room. Physical therapy turned into this silent war. She refused to let me help. She struggled through every movement. I offered support, but she shut it down. The worst was when she fell during one of her sessions at home, and I instinctively reached out. She slapped my hand away and said, don't pretend to care now. I spent my nights going through old bridge reports. I saw a few notes from the early drafts. There had been concerns about stress loads in a few sections, notes from engineers recommending delays, but I had signed off anyway. We were under pressure. Budget was tight. We were behind. I thought we could reinforce later. I thought I had time. One night I found Claire's journal in the bottom drawer of her dresser. She wrote about everything. How Maddie was pulling away. How she felt like she was parenting alone. One entry said, I miss my husband, and he's sitting 3 feet away from me. The part that broke me was a line she wrote a week before the accident. Maddie asked him to take her to the art show again. He promised again. I think she stopped believing him. I read it 3 times. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I tried to talk to Maddie. I told her I missed her. I told her I wanted to make things right. She just stared at me and said, she wouldn't have been on that bridge if you showed up. Later, during one of our fights, she told me she had begged me to take her. She said Claire was scared of driving during storms, but did it because I wouldn't. Maddie looked at me and said, you unalived her. And then she wheeled away before I could say anything. That night I finally admitted it to myself. I had failed them. I put my job first too many times, and now Claire was gone and Maddie hated me, and I couldn't argue with any of it. Then a storm rolled in again, just like the night of the collapse. I went to check on Maddie and her room was empty. Her chair was gone. I called her name and searched every room. Then I looked outside, and I just knew. I drove through the rain to the bridge, the new one. They rebuilt it stronger, safer, without my help. Maddie was standing by the edge where the memorial plaque was. Her clothes were soaked. Her hair stuck to her face. She didn't move when I called her. I sprinted over and took off my jacket and placed it around her shoulders. She didn't pull away from the edge. I told her everything. About the reports I missed, the choices I made, how I thought I was doing what I had to do to provide. I told her I didn't just lose Claire. I lost myself. And I told her if I lost her too, I wouldn't survive it. She didn't say anything, but she stepped back from the edge. Just one small step. That was enough. We stood there for a while, in the rain, in the silence. That night was the first time she let me hold her over a year. Now we go through Claire's things together. Sometimes we laugh, sometimes we cry, sometimes we don't talk at all, but we're doing it together. That's what keeps me going.